I'm very happy to welcome you all. This morning we got Brendan Wheatley, who is at the top of our screen. Good morning, Brendan.
Morning, everybody.
Artistic director and librettist for Swansea City Opera, and going to join us and talk to us about actually a whole range of projects that the Swansea City Opera have been involved with, but hopefully a bit later about the Menshed's opera. I'll let Brendan do his own introduction. Brendan, make your excuses now. You're on if you would like to introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. It's a great pleasure being here. Thank you so much for inviting me along. We've got a few slides and things to show you about productions we've done in the past. A history of Swansea City Opera. We were not always called Swansea City Opera. We started back in 1989, and we were then known as Opera Box. And Opera Box, we started by touring to outdoor venues, castles, Cadw, and toured all over the UK, putting on outdoor operas at these fantastic venues. But after a couple of years, we were picked up by some theatre managers who had seen the work we'd been doing, and they invited us to their theatres. So that's how it developed. But then a few years back, it just became financially prohibitive. It was the technical backup, all the lighting, everything complying with health and safety. So all the lamps, the lights had to be waterproof. It got so expensive that the technical side of it was actually far more expensive than putting the show on. We moved along through the years without funding originally. We had no funding whatever. When we started to do Tower Opera, I don't know if any of you ever remember Tower Opera or saw it. It was about the last deep pit in Wales, with Tyrone O'Sullivan, some of you may know or heard of. Anyway, we were at a dinner with Tyrone, who was speaking, and some of the chaps from Swansea Council approached me and said, would we like some funding? And I said, yes, I'd love it. But you'd never get anything for nothing. So we had to change our name to Swansea City Opera. So that's when we became Swansea City Opera. This is The Daughter of the Regiment by Seti. The story, I won't go into the story and the background of things, but if you can look at the set, our designer for this decided he wanted it to look a bit like one of those old theatre boxes, the cardboard boxes that you used to get that were theatres. So he made the whole thing look a bit like Toy Town, because there was lots of soldiers in it. Basically, the story is about Marie, and she is what was known as a vivandière, who looked after the soldiers, and she was adopted by the regiment. So therefore, she became the daughter of the regiment. Lovely, lovely costumes, lovely set. What we have to do as a touring company, because we only do one night in each theatre. So when we do the theatres, we have to get in the morning. So all the scenery, everything, the lighting, we get in about 10 o'clock in the morning to the theatre. By something like 2 o'clock, the cast turn up, the orchestra turn up. They're still doing lighting and stuff. We have what we call a top and tail. We run through bits in the afternoon. Then we get about an hour and a half break, and then we're on. We do the show, and then it all goes back into a truck at the end of the night. And that's how we've been operating for many years. Opera is for everyone. It just takes a lot of people. I know the barriers come down at an early age. It's to do with education. And I think these barriers should be broken when kids at school, maybe around 7, 8 years old, they should just learn a little bit about it. If they can learn about opera early enough, break down these barriers, these perceptions about opera being just for posh people, I think it would be a huge service. Right, this is the Elixir of Love. The chap in the middle, that's actually me. Again, what you can see, the scenery here, you see all those little houses that are on there. Well, the designer for this based it on Portmeirion. The original opera was based in Italy during Donizetti's time when he wrote this, but we updated it and put it in a mini Portmeirion. A really successful production. This designer, who we used quite often, now he was a young man when we used him designing these pieces for us. He now designs operas all over the world. In New York at the Met, he goes over to Vienna to the State Opera there, to opera in Germany. He's an international designer now, and he learned a lot of his trade actually working with us. We do try to bring along some young singers as well as mixing them with more mature singers to get them to learn the trade, really. So that's L'Elisir d'Amore. If we move on to another Donizetti opera called Don Pasquale. Now, in this design, again, as I say, we get in, get out in a day. So we need scenery that's very adaptable. And in this one, the designer decided to fill the whole stage with all of these hanging pictures and to have this floor cloth, this wonderful floor cloth. But they're all allegorical pictures. They all actually mean something. So again, it's making things accessible to people. And by the way, we do most of our productions in English. Bridget actually translates most of them. And this makes it a lot more accessible, we feel, to the sort of people we get to, because we don't tour the big major theatres. We do places like Buxton Opera House and there's Swansea Grand, but we also do a lot of small theatres. For instance, over on Anglesey, it's a converted church over in Anglesey. We do the Icheldra Centre. So we get around Aberdare, we do that. Yeah, lots of smaller theatres, and the ticket price is aimed to get people into opera so that it's not costing a fortune. There are many people that come to see our operas that probably can't even afford the fare to get to one of the major theatres. But we bring opera to the people. That's one of our main objectives. Is I suppose if I were standing on my orange box, it would be just to sell opera to people. These pictures that you're seeing now is from our production of Faust. He's the devil. That's the devil himself there, Mephistopheles. I directed this, and also I designed the scenery. Now, as many of you probably know, the story of Faust by Goethe is, it's early Victorian, before then. But what I did, I updated it. I wanted the place to look a little bit scary and a bit sort of down at heel, the whole thing. And the costumes, we had a look, the uniforms, instead of being nice, bright, hussar type uniforms that you'd get in an operetta, these are actually German First World War uniforms that we've played around with for the hats and things. So they're not authentic, but it just gives it that austerity, that look. And all the scenery that you can see there, I base that on looking around mainly in Wales at corrugated iron. You'd be surprised when corrugated iron is rusted. It creates these really beautiful colours. When you're out and about in Wales, do have a look at these buildings, these corrugated iron buildings. And this was the inspiration for that particular set. And again, that was quite a heavy set. We needed an extra truck to actually bring this one around. Yeah. Now this is La Bohème. And what I did with the La Boheme, again, I directed this and designed it. The main characters in it are Bohemian artists. So the windows that you can see there that are crooked, their life is so distorted, but painters need light. So I had the windows, but the back cloth, as you can see, I set this particular piece, 1945 in Paris. So I updated it by about 100 years. The inspiration for the back cloth with all these pictures actually came, I was abroad, I was in Hungary, and there was a cafe there I went into, and the tables you sat at, these little round tables, had glass tops, and underneath the glass tops they had old photographs of the cafe from about 100 years ago. And so there's these collage of photographs of Budapest and different parts of Hungary, all in the sepia color. And that was the inspiration for the back cloth. And there are very many similarities between what was happening when Puccini actually wrote this opera, with TB being a huge problem at the time, and also just after the Second World War there was a big TB problem. People also in this state after a war, there's starvation, food, everything, it just fitted. So I updated it to that, and I even had one of the characters that you can see in the bottom right hand corner of your screen. He's an American officer, so they've actually now in Paris with the troops. You've got, and then on the left hand side of your screen you'll see the main characters. They're the Bohemians with Mimi, Rodolfo, Marcello, all the Bohemians there. So that was the inspiration again for that particular opera. If we move along to the Barber of Seville, which I'm sure everyone knows, again, that's me in the middle. I did not direct this, I did revive it, but the original production was by Andrew Gallagher, who unfortunately passed away a few years ago. Again, simple scenery. This is, we need to get it in and out of theatres, but Gabriella Ingram is our costume designer, and she comes up with all these wonderful costumes. So all the operas you've seen so far, she has been the costume designer. She's a wonderful designer, and again works a lot abroad now. When we first got together with Gabriella and she did some designs for us, she was just starting out in her career. Now she has progressed. The people on here, you can see some young singers, the girl singing Rosina in the golden dress near the back there. She's a young singer, not long out of college. You've got me, that's been around for a very long time now. The chap behind me with the wig in the pale costume, his name's Paul Hudson. He was actually a principal bass at the Royal Opera House for many years. So again, it's this mixture of really experienced people and people starting out in their career to help them to learn how to work. So we try to get opera to teach people in many ways. The other thing is that when we're on tour before the opera starts, I invite the audience along for a half-hour talk before the performance, so that they know what's going on behind the scenes and how it works and the thoughts behind the production. And sometimes we do a post-performance talk as well, a questions and answers. This is Tower Opera. Now, this was a world premiere. This went on at the Swansea Grand to start with. This was a brand new opera. A lot of people I talk to that know very little about opera actually think that it's not being written now, that it was written 100 years ago, whatever, and that it's not now being written. But I promise you, as we are sitting here now, people are writing operas. For instance, The Men's Sheds, Shoulder to Shoulder. People are writing opera day in and day out as we go. This production, the composer for this was a great Welsh composer, international composer, very famous, named Alun Hodinot. I don't know if any of you have heard of him. He's worked all over the world. Unfortunately, Alan passed away a few years ago, but fabulous composer. The scenery here, because I did not design this at all, I directed it. It's the Tower Opera. So you can see the pit wheel at the top, but the argument was going on with politicians. So you've got the Big Ben at the bottom there. You've got 3 politicians on the top. That platform they're on, actually, the pit wheel turns and that goes up and down. It's quite a complicated set. And the idea that I had was that when it's at the top there, it goes back to Shakespearean times, really, that the politicians are looking down on the workers. So this was the sort of thing. So the workers at the bottom, the groundlings, as Shakespeare would have called them. Yet you've got the politicians that think they're above everyone else there at the top there. So it's during the Heseltine era. And Clwyd was actually one of the characters in the opera as well. We got her in. So I don't you remember Anne, bless her, lovely lady, and she worked very hard for us as well. These are the workers. This is Robert Lloyd. Robert Lloyd has been a principal bass at the Royal Opera House for 25, 30 years. He has sung all over the world at the top opera houses. I happened to know him, and we talked about this project, and he said, I must do it. We couldn't normally afford someone like him, but he just so loved the idea of this opera and the political context of the opera that he said he must be in it, and he just happened to have a window in his diary. The chaps that you see there are the workers from the pit. They represent the workers. And what we did with this, we actually involved some local male voice choirs in the production. And at one time, they actually sang Mavanui, which always brought the house down. Great opera. It did 14 performances, and I would love someone else to revive it and send it out and about now. The story's great, great music. Now we're getting on to some of our outside work. We don't just put on operas. This was what was called a momentum project. And this particular one was about a bus stop in Splot. The local community there, we worked with them to produce a 1-hour piece. And the story was about, when we talked to these people, we did some workshops with them, and they were saying that the bus in Splot would go past their stop. So these young people of various ethnic backgrounds trying to get to work, trying to get to college, and the bus just would go straight past them. They'd be at the bus stop and it'd go past them. And we made a short story about this. They helped make the story. The whole thing was to involve them. They come out with the words, they come out with the music. We composed the music with them and the story. There was some dancing involved in it. So we had a choreographer come in to help them with that. The idea is for, as with Shoulder to Shoulder, the men's sheds, let them be part of it, involved in it as part of the construction of the piece. This is Musical Roots in Swansea. What we did here, there are lots of immigrants in Swansea that have been there for generations, and we brought together all of these people to the Riverside Museum, Waterfront Museum, and they brought food, their own traditional food, and they brought their music, dance, all of that along there, and we had a whole day of music. This was something like a 6-month, 9-month project that we did with them and worked with them. These are the Chinese dancers. They actually performed. They decided they wanted a theme. In China, blue and white, they do this porcelain, which is blue and white, and they wanted to put forward this blue and white project a part of their history. They did a traditional Chinese dance. They take lessons. They got someone in, a professional, who works with Chinese people working on their traditional dance, and they came in. The costumes were made in China, especially for the day, and they came in. They brought all sorts of things with them. They were absolutely stunning in their dance. At the same time, upstairs at the waterfront, so downstairs there were things going on. Upstairs, we did a remake, as it were, of Purcell's opera. Now, Purcell wrote this in something like the 1600s. It's about Dido and Aeneas. Many of you may know, we thought this was appropriate because Dido and Aeneas, the story is that Aeneas has been defeated in the Trojan Wars. Therefore, he himself is an immigrant. He leaves and he goes to an island where the queen is Dido. They fall madly in love, but the witches there convince him that he should go back and continue the Trojan Wars. That's what the opera is about. It's a lot of dance, and this represents one of the witches, which they made the costume. But what we did, we used some of Purcell's music, but in it we used a scene from the opera, but performed as a play. And performed as a play, all we did was give the kids here the story, but said, now that's the theme. In this scene, we want you to make your own story up, but on that theme. So all the dialogue, they created it themselves. We went in and we workshopped with them and said, yeah, this works, that works, do what, that's great. And it progressed the story. So, and then suddenly after this scene, you'd be back into Purcell again, and we had some professional singers in there that did the next scene as Purcell wrote it. So it really involved these young people. There was another group in this as well, and they were people, disadvantaged people that had learning difficulties, things like that. And they were in as well, and they were works that were choreographed for them, dances. The good thing about Dido and Aeneas is he composed about 7 dances during this opera. And the opera originally was written for a girls' school in London called Whitefriars School. So again, it was to be put on using young ladies, as they would have been called then, at this school. So it all just knitted together as a project. So this was upstairs. Then when this had finished, they went downstairs and they could see all the other people. We had African drummers, we had all sorts, an African choir. There were people there from the Sudan. It was a big 12-month project that we did alongside putting on our operas. We were the first company ever to be given a grant by the British Council Cultural Protection Fund, the first company ever in Wales to be given funding for a project. And we went over, the project was in Lebanon 18 months ago. We were over there, we made 5 visits working with people over there on the camps. So all of these people on Shatila camp, just outside Beirut, and then there was another camp down in the south that we worked with. The idea was that the Palestinians and Syrians are actually losing their heritage, and we wanted to capture their heritage before it's gone. We trained people using cameras and microphones, and they went round these camps with these unfortunate people and talked to them about their stories, about how they got to the camp. Shatila camp was built for 10,000 refugees. There are 26,000 live on that camp. And they now have COVID. So that's Shatil. If we move, and this is the food they produce. So again, we had lots of recipes. The Palestinian Syrians love their food, I have to say. And whenever we talk to these people, there were recipes. And our partner in this project was the American University of Beirut. And if you go onto the American University of Beirut website and look at their history of this project, you'll see it's all on there. It's all documented, the stories. So there are stories on there. There are pictures on there. These are the traditional dancers, these young people, lovely dancers. They work so hard. They really do want to keep their traditions, and they're in their traditional costumes, these young people. So this was we did a performance at the camp. There's a small place there that they set up, and we actually did a performance of their songs, their music, and dance on there. These are from the south of Lebanon. The camp there is Rashidia. And Rashidia camp is a little bit bigger than Shatila. The project was to actually have recorded their music, their dance, their recipes, and their stories from the camp and their journey, because a lot of these people, the older people, remember when they lived in Palestine and the journey they had to make across to Lebanon. And I have to say, you've probably heard a lot about Lebanon recently with that huge explosion that happened about 3 months after we'd left. The people were so welcoming. These people basically have nothing. They've got no chance of leaving. They have no passports, no paperwork. There's a small football pitch just on the edge of the camp. It's a AstroTurf pitch. They love their football. Inter Milan sponsor that. It doesn't belong to the camp. They pay for the rental. Inter Milan football team. They pay for that, and they send a coach to teach them. We saw them playing a game there. They supply all the kit for them. And there was one chap at the side of the pitch and not playing. And someone came up and said, "Did you see that chap over there?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "He is the best player we've ever had. He's fantastic. But he has no papers. He can't get out of Lebanon. He can't do anything. He's given up the football and he's now on drugs." Place is full of those cables. Some of them are electrical cables and some are water. The year before we were there, 5 people died just touching the walls that were wet. This is how they live. They can get off the camp. They are restricted on education. They can go to schools, but they're restricted on what they can, exams they can take, and they're restricting, there's something like 70 something jobs that they are forbidden to do. So that they're the sort of restrictions that they're living under. And one of the amazing things is that our people that we'd trained to do this were walking around and they were interviewing people. They actually found relatives. The artwork you see there is Sean has done that for us. Now, Sean, he does the artwork for all of our programs. When we're touring our operas, he does the front cover of our opera programs. So Sean has made this. We took, again, this shoulder to shoulder, these words, that how men work better together as shoulder to shoulder. So we took that, we talked to Sean about this, and this is the image that he came up with, which we rather like. I hope you like it too. So what's this opera about? Well, we've been really privileged to be able to talk to people that come to these sheds. We've been to a couple of sheds. Because of COVID, it's been rather difficult to get to more sheds. We want to, I know we've got someone here from up north of Wales. We certainly want to come up there and interview some people. We want to get to a few more sheds. Robert will help us with that. All we do is record stories. When we record the stories, they're completely anonymous, no names, no pack drill, so that the whole thing, no one, it's just the stories that we want. We don't put the names to the stories. Then my job as the librettist on this is to put these stories together. So it may be a bit of a story from one person at the shed and a bit of a story from another person at the shed, and knit them together to make a whole story. But then you've got to find a theme throughout the whole piece, so that there's, like any theatrical production or film, there's got to be a beginning, a middle, and an end. We've been absolutely fascinated by some of the stories that we've heard from these people. We recorded them. The people we've talked to have been so helpful and so enthusiastic about this project, which that's half the work if you get that enthusiasm. And I think now, Chris, we managed, even during COVID, to record some of the music, which Caradog Williams is our composer, who we've worked with before, and he's produced this music for us. The first one is a men's sheds. We call it the men's sheds rap. What it is, if you imagine the chaps going into the shed first thing in the morning, they're opening the door, they get in there and they start to work. So this is the men's sheds rap.
When all's said and done, it's not much fun just sitting on your bum. It's no use to waiting, what's the point in waiting? Shed's got a 5-star rating. We've laughed and laughed, just being daft, and we do a bit of graft. There's lots of things to do, and we'd like to have a brew. It's what men do. Just chewing the fat. learn to use a lathe, and we sell the stuff we've made. Days come tough when you've hard at work and think you've had enough. So don't sit at home feeling all alone. Get on the 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 phone. There's a shed nearby, so don't be shy. Give it a try. Who can do it? You can do it. Come and do it. Who can do it? You can do it. Come and do it. You can do it. Come and do it. Who can do it? You can do it. Come and do it. Who can do it? You can do it. Come and do it. Come and do it. I did it. We did it. He did it. I did it. We did it.
So that's one of the pieces. And again, why are we doing this? It's to actually promote men's sheds as well. That's one of the main things that we would like to do with this. We don't, I think our object here is to perform, not necessarily in big theatres. What we want to do is to get this, it'll be about a 1 hour piece when it's complete, if we get more funding. This is just a pilot project that we've been funded for at the moment. But if we can get this working, we want to perform in places like the community halls, local places, really take it down to the people that might be really interested in this. I know I live out in the middle of nowhere near Brecon, and I know that farmers have a lot of problems, as well as people who have been made redundant or have illness, all of that. And if we can get this work out to people, to the community, and at a price that they can really afford, then I think it will promote men's sheds, and it will help people to find other sheds, and maybe more sheds will start up. So it's a big promotion thing along with it. This is the object of the whole work, is to promote men's sheds, to get people talking about depression, talking about other illnesses, and people that have suffered from being made redundant, all that sort of thing that really get people down. We've heard some very harrowing stories. We'll play a little bit of the next piece that we did. We recorded this, it was during COVID, but when we recorded it, we were all socially distanced. The singers that you're hearing are all Welsh singers, the composer's Welsh, and they're all professional singers that we've worked with in the past, and they're doing a great job, we feel. This is a little bit different. This is the story here, is that the man, the father, is suffering from depression, and his daughter visits, and she does his shopping for him, and it's the beginning of, you can see that there's tension there, because she doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know how to look after her dad because of these depressions, and it just tells the story a little bit about why he's depressed. And the stories, the story you're going to hear here is little bits from several people that we talked to. So this is a father-daughter scene.
Hiya, love.
How have you been?
Oh, not
The
too.
weather's rough again. I don't like all this wet.
No, you
I've
can
done
get a
some
bit.
shopping for you. Got you
Thanks,
favorite
love.
sauce
and
The
stuff.
supermarket was heaven and the girl at the till was bloody useless. I don't know where they get it from. There was a queue a mile long waiting to be served. Well, pushing and shoving.
Yeah, hit the
I saw
scarab.
Debbie there, Debbie Williams. Remember her from school?
Yeah,
God,
wasn't
she
she?
couldn't wait. She used to be so slim, but you should see her now. She's enormous.
Well, she has
I
had.
hardly recognized her.
Well, she
What's
has
that?
had. Doesn't matter.
Anyway, as I was saying, I got your favorite sausages and some bread, cheese, fish fingers, and a couple of easy oven meals, or you can ding them in the microwave if it's easier.
And did you
Yeah, I
remember?
got you a bottle of cheap scotch, but I think you drink too much. You should cut down, you know. What on earth would Mum have said if she was still alive? You know she couldn't stand the smell of whiskey.
You're right,
Remember
of
when you got
course.
drunk that time on holiday?
She wasn't very
Not very happy. She went bananas. I thought she was going to go through the roof. She was so mad. Never seen her so angry.
I made it up
And he bought
to.
her that brooch she had seen to make up for it. That was nice.
Yeah. I wonder where it is.
It was on one of her coats when we were clearing her things out. So I took it to remind me of her. Hope you don't mind, but it's no use to you, is it?
It was very
Put these things in the fridge
sentimental.
for you. Then I really must be going. Kids pick up from school and things.
She's always in such a rush. It's as if she can't wait to get away. She's a good girl, and she's all I've got now. Mom's gone, and Billy, oh Billy, why did you have to go and do that? I know it was hard with Mom gone and me going off the rails a bit, but why do such a stupid thing when you have your whole life in front of you? We loved you. We really loved you.
Oh God, not again. Here we go again. Just when I thought it was okay. He's in that mood, that dark black place that only he knows. What can I say? What can I do? I've tried to say he's just being daft. I've tried to tell him it's all in the past. Bullying, loving, none of it works. Talking about the past only makes things worse. Those days we had in the caravan,
Playing about, just the four of us.
me, Mum, and Dad, and
Oh,
Billy.
Billy,
That starting caravan by the
seaside. Our
seaside.
paradise, where we talked and laughed and walked and did stupid things
And
together.
did stupid things together.
Mom was the rock, always
Dad just wanted
organized.
adventures, to say things, to tell us about the local places, but always with a laugh, and some of it I'm sure he just made up to make it all special, especially for Billy. Poor Billy.
Slow than other boys, special
boys,
schooling, but
special
what
schooling, but
energy,
what
what
energy,
giving, what wanted to
giving,
always
what wanted to
please,
always
what
please,
love. I miss him
I miss him
so
so
much.
much. Dad, I've got to go. See you next week, but I'll phone when I can. I really don't know where the time goes looking after those two kids.
Yes, how are the
And
kids?
husband,
Yes,
Pulling down a part-time job just to make ends meet. The time just flies by.
Give my love to the
So
king.
tonight, Dad, look after yourself.
For time flies, so much to do. Oh, be it just drags, every hour an eternity.
That was Robert Visitainer, project manager of Mensheds Cymru. And just to repeat that website again, it's www.mensheds.cymru.
I just switched the radio in the car and heard that Mensheds thing. We discussed it and you did nothing. They're open today, so get your coat and drive you there.
Okay, I'll think about it.
No, Dad, no more thinking about it. Get your bloody coat on. This is driving me crazy. I know you're not well.
But I just want to.
Do it for me, Dad. Please, I love you. Do it for me.
Okay, that's as far as we've got. This is the pilot. As you can see, there's the beginning of the story is this man who's had the losses of his wife and son, and then the daughter, who doesn't know what to do with him. There's this thing on the radio. By the way, that was a starring role by Robert himself as the radio voice. And they go off down to the shed, and this is where the story starts, and hopefully progresses. There are upbeat bits in the opera, as you heard with the rap, and there are the other sides of it as well. So what any story has to do, any film, any opera, it has to have ups and downs. So it's not going to be a dark evening, as it were, of people suffering from depression. It's going to show what we can do, what the Mensheds do to actually help these people along. So whenever I've been to one of these sheds, the jokes and the laughter that's going on there, it's pretty amazing when these lads get together, and some of the girls as well. So I think it's questions and answers time.
Just wondering if, Brendan, will you be requiring any of the sheds to provide props on stage for the production?
What I want to do with the scenery of the set, there's obviously got to be some sort of workbench and things there. I would like loads of stuff in the venue that the men have made. And at the end of every performance, I want them to actually sell the stuff. We've asked chaps at the sheds, do you want to be in the show? Over the last few years, we have been involving local amateur choirs in some of our shows to boost the choruses in our shows. We're very used to doing it. We won't ask them to do anything that's too difficult, and they'll have plenty of people around them. But any of the chaps from the Mensheds or the ladies who want to join in the chorus and doing something, bits and bobs, even a bit of stage management, something like that, they're more than welcome. We want to involve the people. It's a team sport opera, and we want to involve everyone.
Yeah, I think certainly from my shed's point of view, from Squirrel's Nest, I think there's only one who may want to get involved, and that would be Mark.
Mark has just had an amputation, hasn't
Yes,
he?
he has. Yes, and he's doing well, thank God.
We have been in touch with him, and he's very enthusiastic. And of course, we want to welcome him, and we will work around any problem that he has.
Yes.
We've had people on stage before in wheelchairs that belong to amateur choirs. We get round it.
Yeah. Thank you, Brenda.
Pleasure.
Anyone else got anything they want to join in with?
I would desperately like to start a men's shed here in Carsus village, but it's quite difficult. And I was just thinking when Brendan was saying all of that, what a wonderful thing it would be to have the opera in the village hall as a sort of a kickstart. But I just really don't know how to go about it.
Okay, yeah, right, fine, no problem. We'll put some contact details in the chat box. You can find us on our website. We will talk to you and help you out with that. But you're right, the idea of the opera being a sort of flag to rally round, isn't it, is a great idea. I think will work really well.
Anything we can do to help, we'll certainly do that, even if it means maybe transporting people to a performance that's not in your village hall. We just have to see how it goes, and if we get the funding from the Arts Council Wales to continue the project. But please keep in touch with the people from Men's Sheds that like Chris, and they'll help you as much as possible, and if we can help, we will.
Lovely. Thank you, Brendan. Thank you.
Brendan, that was an amazing, I thoroughly enjoyed listening to that exciting project. You know, I've just come from Wrexham, where one of your fellow companies, Cardiff, been doing some refugees there, but really exciting. And I mean, all sorts of stuff's firing off, and this idea of involving Men's Sheds so directly, I think is great. In answer to what Diod asked, are you able to use different men from different sheds as you move around, or would it just be one bunch of guys?
No, what we will do when we make in the funding application, it will be for people to visit your shed and to work with people there. They won't just turn up on the day. They will be fully prepared. We're a professional company. We treat people in a professional way, and we get the best out of them that we can. We want them to be involved. It's not just a case of you turn up and stand there and here's your music. They will be fully rehearsed before they get to the performance. So we use a thing called the cloud. So we can, when the music's composed, we can send the music via the cloud, and they can learn their particular line from that. And if there's a local choir that are involved, they would join in with the choir, so they'll have people around them. We just have to play it by ear, as they say. Yes, excuse the pun.
No, I think it's amazing. It's really, I mean, we've got a men's singing group which we've put on hold for a little bit, and before I joined the Men's Shed thing, because we're about to set a Men's Shed up in Cardigan, we were looking at writing some songs to, I suppose, support the types of things we're doing outdoors and maybe indoors. So no, we're really interested. Do you need any help on local funding applications? Because I do think this is a very exciting way of getting over the whole Men's Shed notion, ideas, and what it can do for men.
Bridget, my boss over here, Bridget, my other half, is she's prompting me, saying that get in touch with us, and we'll be back to you about anything like that. We do have a professional fundraiser that works with us, that we've worked with for 30 years now, and he does a lot of our applications for us. But anything else that's coming along, the more the merrier.
Good. And just finally, what is the sort of time scale for this?
I think that if we get the funding, I reckon spring next year.
Wow. Okay, great. Thank you.
Firstly, I think I'd just say congratulations for all the work you've done with the British Council and everything. I mean, I'm very impressed. And of course, everybody within the Men's Sheds movement tries to do as much as possible. you know, with under the umbrella of encouraging shed community to try and make people's lives just a little bit easier. So you've done that. Well done. What came to me there was the conversations between the son and between the daughter and the father there, which is just such a you know, a common thing that we see, those conversations that just don't connect. We hear it all the time when there's you know, the daughter's trying to get something out, but actually she's just talking about her day and people are trying to interact, but they can't do it. And I thought that came across beautifully. And the interesting thing about that is, from my experience, that what we've seen is daughters will very often bring their fathers in.
Yeah.
And I've on at least 3 and one particularly notable occasion where this person was never ever going to turn up at our shed, had his daughter not literally said, yes, you're going, and led him along by his ear, literally. And as I saw him from a distance, his eyes caught mine, and he looked down at the floor like he just didn't want to be involved at all. And I just went and I just had a chat and said, fancy a cuppa? And he said, oh yeah, cheers. And that's how it started. He's a very good friend and he's still alive, I'm very pleased to say. So superb work, and actually targeting you know, daughters and wives with your performances, which, because men's sheds and shed community in general, it's notoriously difficult to get people along, especially the first time.
We are hoping as a company is that if this project takes off, we will then put in applications for a similar project or the same project to go over into maybe into England, Scotland. Who knows? Maybe you're over in Ireland. It would be fantastic. We just need to spread the word. The other thing that we will be doing at the performances, as you know, whenever you go to the theatre, there's always a programme on sale. We will be doing that, but a lot of the programme will be to do with promoting men's sheds, not just singers' biographies and the things we've done. It will be there to promote men's sheds. That's what it's about.
Is there any way we can get any of the TV companies involved with this, the BBC or ITV Wales, or to broadcast this?
I think we've already had this idea, but I think until we've got the funding for the full project, we would be jumping the gun a little bit.
Right.
I think as soon as we've got, because we've got this pilot in the can, as it were, once we can get some funding and make it then try to approach TV companies. This is a Welsh project funded by the Welsh Arts Council. The other funders that we've got on board are the Garfield Western, the Communities Lottery Fund. They've also come on with some funding as well.
Okay.
So hopefully it will grow.
Good, good.
I've got a friend who lives in Newport, and they deal with similar topics with teenage men and young men. And I wondered, could you make use of her knowledge, background, and what she's found out with the teenagers and the young men?
All of it is useful for the project, and it's a total reciprocal thing. Anything like that is going to be helping us, and if it helps us, it will help them. So any of this information, look on our website, get in touch with us. We'd gladly talk to anyone who thinks that this project can help them.
Well, what I'll do first of all is I'll get in touch with her via Facebook, and if she just tells me to push off, then I won't take it any further. But if she says it's a good idea, if she says it's a good idea, then I'll start the ball rolling.
There are a lot of people that believe that the problems that these people have is purely for elderly people, and this is wrong. And the other thing, from what I can make out, there are more and more younger people having these sort of problems today than we were aware of in the past.
That is a whole focus, is showing how depression affects teenage men and young men, and how they get over it or not, as the case may be. And also she does it with adults and women and all that as well. But notably is the teenagers and the young men. And I think that if you linked up, if she was amenable, then you could both get something out of it. Yeah, definitely.
Peter, do you encourage young men to come along to your shed?
Do you know what? I only go in for 3 weeks and then COVID came in.
Oh, I see. Right. Oh, okay.
But the rule is, I think anybody can go.
One of the sheds we went to, the one on the roundabout, that the ladies are there. Which one was it? Clydach. Whilst we were there, some ladies come along there, and the men love it. You know, it adds something to what's going on, because I think some people feel that men together, you know, that they're going to sit there telling lewd jokes or something all day long.
From Squirrel's Nest point of view, we have 3 female members.
Yeah, which I think is great, and they're not excluded from this show. You know, again, the choir, we need sopranos, mezzos, we need these people. So yeah, the more the merrier.
And play a big part in our shed, and it's absolutely fantastic to see how the men and women get on. You know, there's none of this, can't have women on a Wednesday or anything like that, and the women don't say, oh, we don't want men with us. They just get on, and I think it all adds to the mix and the fun of the shed.
Belinda, you're absolutely right, and we really loved coming along to your shed and seeing the ladies there. And again, as in the squirrels, everyone was just so welcoming. I have to tell you, you might not believe it, but I was actually very nervous going to these sheds for the first time, because I really did not know what to expect. And within 5 minutes, the barriers had been broken down, and everyone was so welcoming and enthusiastic.
Oh, good.
That is the first step across the threshold that so many members find really difficult, you know, to the shed for the first time. And that story is repeated by men all over, well, just way beyond Wales, you know, all over the world, saying, well, it took me weeks and weeks, months sometimes, to get to the shed for the first time. And then as soon as I was there and they offered me a cup of tea, and within 5 minutes, I felt like I'd been there. And that's the story of shed.
Wouldn't it be great if when this project, which I'm confident, Bridget is very confident that we will complete this project, that if it could be recorded somehow as well, the show, and we could get that over to Australia and these other places so that they can see it and use it as promotion material. This movement, as it were, the men's sheds movement, which started in Australia, wouldn't it be fantastic if they could see how other people had taken it on board and run with it, and it goes back to its roots? This
is one of the operas that you'll write, which if you do decide to write in a part for yourself, you'll fit in just fine, sir.
Of course, you'd have to send it to New South Wales, Brendan, wouldn't you?
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. It's very exciting, and it is really interesting to see the other stuff that you've been doing as well. I'm a big supporter of community theatre. Thank you very much, Brendan. That was great. Really enjoyed it. It was
Thank
wonderful.
you for organising that. Really great pleasure.